My dad had an impressive collection of old consoles, many of which he'd had since he was young. Since he didn't use them much, he gave me a few, including a Game Boy Color, on which I loved playing Pokemon Crystal. This incident happened a few years ago while I was at an arcade called Dave & Buster's, one of my favorite places to play. That afternoon, I saw a kid stealing game cards from the arcade. It seemed odd, but I decided not to get involved, figuring karma would take care of it. After a while, playing on my Game Boy, I was about to get up to grab my game card when a woman who seemed quite bossy came up to me. She interrupted me in a commanding tone and said, "Excuse me, young man, stop right there." When I asked how I could help, she replied with a demanding voice, the kind you'd expect from a Karen, "Give my son the game toy you're using." I was shocked by her audacity and politely responded that I couldn't do that. But she kept insisting, saying that her son deserved the gift because he had been well behaved for the last month. I couldn't believe what I was hearing and asked why I should give her son my Game Boy. She then offered me $40 for the console. I thought that was ridiculous and said that a Game Boy was worth much more than that, plus it was a keepsake from my dad. But she didn't seem to care and turned back to talk to her son. I put my Game Boy in my back pocket and went to play on other arcade machines. While I was playing, I felt a slight tug on my pocket, followed by quick footsteps moving away. That's when I realized my Game Boy was gone. I immediately knew who the culprit was. Furious, I went after the woman and her son, who were already heading out of the arcade. I shouted at her, saying her son had stolen my Game Boy. She looked surprised but denied everything, saying her son was an angel. I tried to grab my Game Boy back from the kid, but the woman slapped me hard. I was stunned, unable to believe what had just happened. I asked the woman why she had done that and why she was protecting her son who had stolen my Game Boy. She responded with disdain, saying the game toy was theirs now and I should deal with it. When I explained that the Game Boy was a keepsake from my dad, she just mocked me, saying it was old and my dad probably wouldn't care. I was outraged but still wanted to get my Game Boy back. Honestly, I didn't know what else to do to handle that situation. My dad was passionate about playing on his Game Boy, and I knew he'd be furious about what had happened. In my attempt to get the console back from the demon kid, I noticed his hands were greasy. That's when the woman, the so-called Karen, started yelling at me. "How dare you take that from him? I'm calling the police." I didn't pay her any mind. I just got on my bike and went home. But if you think that was the end of the story, you're completely wrong. An hour after I got home, I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, there was a police officer, and behind him were Karen and her son. The officer asked if I had stolen something, and I had to convince him that the Game Boy was mine. I showed him an old receipt for Pokemon Crystal to prove my innocence. Fortunately, the officer believed me, and I was relieved. However, Karen kept bothering me for a few days, and I got pretty irritated by the whole thing. Who calls a Game Boy a game thing and thinks they can just take it from someone else? I was happy to have gotten my Game Boy back, but Karen's attitude made me think about the kind of person who defends a child stealing and then hits a stranger. As a classic console lover, I wouldn't let that slide easily. The audacity of some people is unbelievable. And as someone who grew up playing on the Game Boy, I'd be devastated if someone stole something with that much sentimental value. This story reminds me of a friend who borrowed money from me a few months ago. I let him stay at my place because he was in a tough spot. We had been friends for 4 years, and I believed he'd pay me back, but he started making questionable decisions. Instead of buying essentials to get back on his feet, he spent money on frivolous things like gaming mice, a second monitor, and even skins for guns and online games. I was disappointed, but I still believed he would pay me back on time. When the due date arrived and he didn't pay, I started asking for the money. But he only talked about his personal problems and ignored my messages, which made me really angry. The lack of consideration and the attitude of dodging responsibility were clear signs of someone who didn't care about honoring their debts. These situations, whether it's with a longtime friend or a Karen trying to steal a Game Boy, show that a lack of respect and integrity can come from anywhere. And in the end, it's up to us to decide when it's time to draw the line and protect what's ours. It seems like my friend was thinking something along the lines of, "Oh, it's just my friend's money. I'll pay it back later." The truth is, I really needed that money, and I feel bad about having to cut ties with him. I heard that he can't pay his electricity bills and owes money to several other people in much larger amounts than he owes me. What should I do? The best thing would be to never lend money to this person again. He clearly took advantage of you. You learned a valuable lesson not to give money to leeches. This guy was just that, a leech on your wallet, and you don't need that in your life. The truth is that you'll probably never see that money again. I don't blame you for wanting to cut ties with him because that's a huge breach of trust. You were there for him when he needed it, but it seems like he used you and then vanished. I hope you learned something from this, and the next time someone asks you for money, you'll think twice and make sure it's someone who will really pay you back. I went through something similar with my girlfriend. I was brutally honest with her, and our relationship ended. She has serious social anxiety issues and has met a lot of bad people. We had a long friendship before we started dating. At first, everything was fine, but over time, she started to show her insecure side. Even so, I promised that I would always be there for her. Yesterday, we had an argument, and I asked if she felt the same way about me. She replied that if there were someone better, she would go with that person. I was shocked, but I tried to stay calm. When I asked why she would say something like that, she said, "I know you would do the same." I assured her I wouldn't, but she didn't change her mind. The argument got worse, and she started calling me a liar, dishonest, and insinuated that I was disloyal. She broke up with me right there and acted childishly when I tried to fix the situation. After that, she blocked me on all social media, but unblocked me an hour later and started talking again. She asked me to be honest about everything, and I was. I told her that, a long time ago, I found a celebrity attractive, but nothing more. She got super upset, saying that meant I was disloyal. She claimed that if an attractive girl asked me out, I would go. I denied it and said I loved her unconditionally, but she didn't want to hear it. She said she was feeling unwell and ended up passing out. I was desperate, trying to fix everything, sending messages, apologizing, and saying how much I loved her. I kept sending messages almost every hour, even after she fell asleep. She woke up really early and just replied with a K before going back to sleep. Honestly, I'm lost and don't know how to fix this relationship. What should I do? Honestly, it seems like your girlfriend is acting in a pretty erratic way, and I'm not sure I'd tolerate this kind of behavior for much longer. The thing about having a crush on a celebrity is that it's not real. That famous person is never going to know you. So if your partner gets upset because you find a celebrity attractive, the problem is with them, not with you. You're just talking about someone out of reach, and that's not a cause for concern. It doesn't make sense to think someone would cheat just because they found a celebrity attractive. It's completely irrational to consider that a reason to question your loyalty. You seem to be doing everything to keep this relationship together, but honestly, I think you'd be much better off without her. Your girlfriend seems to use her social anxiety and insecurities to manipulate you, and I believe you deserve someone who doesn't do that. You can find someone who doesn't use their own fears as an excuse to treat you poorly. A girl I'm interested in dating keeps canceling our plans because of anxiety. What should I do? I met Sarah online, and we had an instant connection. We both share many interests and like each other. Our first date was great, but she has canceled the other 3 that we've tried to plan. Twice, she backed out a few hours before, and the last time, she didn't even give an excuse. When I asked if she was losing interest, she said she was still interested but had been overwhelmed by some bad news recently, and her anxiety was taking over. I also have anxiety, so I understand the need to cancel plans sometimes, but I'm starting to feel frustrated and rejected. I have to start all our text conversations and all our plans. I asked if she wanted me to stop inviting her out, but she said no, she's still interested. But I'm not sure what to do. I know some will say I should give up and move on, but I'm hesitant because I feel like we have a great connection. Do you have any advice for someone in this situation? Is there something I can do to help her feel comfortable enough so we can finally have a date without cancellations? What's the best way to approach this? I understand your frustration. You found someone you really connected with and want to get to know her better, but she keeps canceling. It sounds like she really is interested, but her anxiety is getting in the way. The best thing to do is be patient, but also set clear boundaries so you don't get hurt in the process. It might be helpful to give her some space while showing that you're still around. This could help her feel more comfortable setting a date without canceling at the last minute. However, If this continues, you might need to reconsider if it's worth investing more time in someone who can't commit to plans with you. Her anxiety seems to be taking over, and that's understandable to an extent. However, after a while, it can become a big barrier to any relationship. Personally, I'd be pretty frustrated if I was trying to go out with a girl for the third time, and she canceled for the third time in a row. It's disheartening and not something you'd want to deal with. If I were in your shoes, I would have moved on by now. But it seems like you want to give it a chance, so maybe it's best to leave things up to her and see what happens. If she feels ready and can manage her anxiety, maybe she'll reach out and try to set up another date. In the meantime, I think you shouldn't be waiting for her indefinitely. You might consider meeting other people, but still leave the ball in her court to see how she responds. She could call and say, "Yes, I want to go out with you. Let's try again." Or she might never get back to you, which is also an important answer. If she doesn't reach out, it's a clear indication that she's not interested, and you should move on. This clarity is valuable because it removes the doubt and prevents you from wasting time. I hope you can finally get that second date, but if it doesn't happen, at least you'll know you tried. Today, I made a mistake by showing the movie Coraline to my daughter without knowing the plot, and now I fear I might have traumatized her. It all happened over the weekend. My husband and I share responsibility for this. We have a 5-year-old daughter, and we're always looking for movies we can watch with her. We want something that's both fun for kids and tolerable for adults. We usually show her movies that we enjoyed when we were kids, as well as some more recent ones. I've always been a fan of Tim Burton movies, and my daughter really liked The Nightmare Before Christmas. So when I found a copy of Coraline at a garage sale, I thought it would be a fun movie for us to watch together. The cover seemed inviting, giving the impression of a plot similar to The Nightmare Before Christmas. But I was completely wrong. The story starts innocently enough, with a girl moving into a new apartment in an old house. The parents are always busy working, and the neighbors are kind of weird. The girl gets a doll with button eyes that looks like her, and she discovers a secret door in the apartment. When she crosses through that door, she finds a parallel world, similar to hers but apparently better, where everyone has button eyes. At first, everything seems charming, but it quickly turns out that the other mother is an evil witch who traps children in this dimension. She tries to convince the children to replace their eyes with buttons, and once they agree, they're trapped in her world, unable to leave. When they are fully under her control, the other mother devours their souls. It's a pretty intense plot. Coraline tries to escape, but the other mother kidnaps her parents, forcing her to find a way to rescue them. On top of that, Coraline has to find the eyes of the ghost children to free them. Now, imagine my daughter's reaction to watching this. She started saying she was scared, but I tried to calm her down, encouraging her to keep watching. Sometimes I thought seeing the conclusion of something scary might ease the fear, but that didn't apply here. As we watched, I felt the situation was getting more disturbing. I picked up my phone to read a plot summary and realized that the storyline was only going to get darker. Given that, I told my husband that we needed to stop watching immediately. We turned off the movie and switched to something more cheerful and familiar. But the damage was already done. Since then, my daughter has had recurring nightmares and is completely terrified by the thought of the movie. All we can do is hope we didn't traumatize her, and we'll be more careful with movie choices in the future to avoid situations like this. The movie, for those who don't know, is really scary. It's not suitable for kids. I remember watching it and being quite frightened, even as an adult, so I understand why my daughter reacted the way she did. In the future, we'll be much more careful when choosing what she watches. Would you break up with your boyfriend because of his friends? I'm a 25-year-old woman, and I've been dating my 33-year-old boyfriend for a few months. We met at work, but don't work at the same company. I'm a consultant who spent a few months at his workplace due to the lockdown and the intensity of the project. During that time, I became friends with him and other colleagues. I was invited to several work parties as well as a weekend getaway. That's when the problem started. My boyfriend's friends seemed quite disrespectful to me. One of them made a joke about my hair, and my boyfriend said nothing, claiming he didn't hear it, but I have my doubts. Other friends of his, all in their 30s and 40s, make comments suggesting our relationship is just a fling. We keep our relationship secret because it's still new, but these comments make me uncomfortable. When we go out in a group, my boyfriend's friends rarely talk to me. Instead, They direct their conversations to him, ignoring my presence. One time, they invited my friends to a party, but not me. My boyfriend said it was because they knew them, but that didn't make sense to me, especially since my friends hadn't had much interaction with them before that. I'm trying to understand whether my boyfriend is being naive or just complicit with his friend's disrespectful behavior. I'm considering whether it's worth continuing in this relationship because I don't want to be with someone who allows their friends to disrespect or exclude me. What would be the best way to approach this situation? Should I talk directly to my boyfriend, or should I just step back? I feel like his friends are having a negative influence on him, and it's starting to affect our relationship. I think they're being incredibly rude, acting like a bunch of high school teenagers. I have nothing to do with them, but I keep hearing comments about me, some insinuating personal details about my relationship with my boyfriend, which makes me quite uncomfortable. I believe my boyfriend is being way too passive about his friends' behavior. He knows how much they bother me, but he still hasn't taken any action. He had a party on Friday night and texted me saying he'd leave if I wanted when his friends arrived. However, I think I've already lost my patience. If the people he hangs out with are saying these things after 5 months of dating, and he still can't get them to stop, even after I've asked multiple times, then something is wrong. Honestly, I'm confused, and I don't know if his passivity is something I can tolerate. If your boyfriend's friends are making jokes or inappropriate comments about you, especially in front of your boyfriend, there's no reason he shouldn't step in. He should pull them aside and say, "Hey, this is making my girlfriend uncomfortable. You need to stop." If they're really his friends, they'll understand and respect it. If not, it's a much more serious issue and incredibly inappropriate. From my perspective, I wouldn't blame someone who said, "I think I've had enough," because the boyfriend is being passive instead of standing up for his girlfriend. To me, that's more than enough reason to break up and find someone with more backbone and protection. What do you think? If you were in this situation, what would you do? Leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Today, I made a mistake by taking my brother shopping with a blank check. He works at a restaurant and has been eating the restaurant's food for 10 years, which has made him a bit chubby, as he puts it. He's trying to lose weight but has student debt and is still grieving the early loss of our parents. I thought it would be a good idea to help my brother eat healthier. I'm pretty frugal and earn less than he does, but he's all I have left in this world. He's a great guy who never speaks ill of anyone, so I wanted to do something for him. I took him shopping to buy healthy foods. He got a bunch of frozen and canned goods for storage, along with fresh fruits, vegetables, and meats. It was a big shopping trip, but for the first time in a long time, there was no junk food. When the total came to $104, I thought, wow, this is a bit more than I expected. Outwardly, I was calm, but inside, I was thinking my breakfast was a handful of peanuts, my lunch was almost non-existent, and my dinner was a sandwich from a restaurant. Besides, it was supposed to be my payday, but the manager was out, and I don't have direct deposit. So I went hungry so my brother could eat healthier, even with my paycheck delayed. Honestly, you sound like an amazing brother. You went hungry so your brother could have a healthy meal for the first time in a long time. That shows a lot of character and an enormous amount of kindness. I think you deserve to share some of that food with him because your attitude is truly admirable. I understand that you want to eat healthy and feel good about yourself. It's a shame you don't have direct deposit set up because that would make things a lot easier. Honestly, buddy, you should get that set up right away. Direct deposit is like a best friend for anyone who works. That way, you don't have to go to the bank, fill out forms, or wait in lines to get your money. It goes straight into your account, usually before you even get home. Aside from that, your story is truly inspiring. It's great to see that you have such a strong connection with your family, to the point where you sacrifice your own comfort to make sure they have good food. Thanks for sharing your story with us. If you like this content, remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new videos. To hear more stories, use the playlist at the top of the description.